Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our online class for this week. I appreciate you all being so accommodating, given the circumstances. So this is how we're going to hold class for the week is through Canvas. I'll have my slideshows recorded and uploaded here so you can flip through them, and I'll have some explanations to go with each slide. So please make sure your sound is on. If you can hear my voice now, that indicates the sound is on. All right, so let us go ahead and get started in talking about choosing our supporting materials. So when it comes to choosing your supporting materials for your main points, you really do want to take a general look at what it is that's going to really help build that support for you. So you first want to consider the type of speech that you're presenting. Think about, with our values speech, that was a really personal speech. So considering things like, your personal experiences and examples are really going to help boost your credibility and relate well to your audience because this is a personal speech about yourself. Bring in those personal examples and experiences. When it comes to a different type of speech, such as the upcoming informative speech, you want to think about what would be most compelling to include. What is going to boost your credibility and what is going to relate well to this topic and to your audience. So speaking of considering your audience, think about how you're going to relate to them. Is your topic super complex? And is that going to make it so that your audience feels sort of a wall with their engagement? And, to be honest, they may get bored if the topic is super complex. So you want to figure out ways to bring that complexity into a relatable and engaging type of way. And also you want to consider your own connection to this speech. Do you have experience to draw from? If it is a more personal speech, bring in those experiences. If this is an informative speech and you're talking about something a little bit more complex, still think about why did you choose this speech? Where is your connection to this speech, and how can you bring your own relationship with this topic into your speech? All right, so one of the best things that we can do when it comes to something like an informative speech where you really want to sort of bring forward all the facts and bring your credibility up to a very high level is by providing these facts. And there are a few guidelines that you want to consider when it comes to providing facts. First, distinguish fact from opinion. It is totally fine to include your opinions. However, you don't want to try and disguise them as facts. So an example of this is if you were to describe, say, the life of Eminem, the rapper, Marshall Mathers. You could talk about his hometown, where he grew up, how he made a prominent impact on the music industry, listing the facts about him as an individual, as an artist, as a rapper. But then to say something like, he changed the course of music for rappers to come, that is more of an opinion. And that's totally okay to include opinions, but you want to make sure that you have facts to back up those opinions. And those opinions are likely going to be like even a thesis statement, or your actual main point is you making an argument, you putting forth your opinion, and then using facts to back up that argument, such as listing all the awards that Eminem has won, the movie that he starred in, some of his top-selling records and songs, and so on and so forth. And then you also want to think about definitions, especially if you're speaking about a topic that's very complex. You really want to build that foundational understanding with your audience by just giving a simple definition of the specific things that you are talking about. And also think critically about your facts. Are they accurate? Are they up to date? Are they credible? Are you just getting these facts from a random deep dark web website? Or are these facts that can be proven and backed up with evidence as well? Another thing to consider is incorporating statistics into your presentations. But a really, really important thing to think about when it comes to statistics is making these numbers come alive. So your statistics are going to come in the form of numbers, but you want to make them come alive by comparing these numbers to something that is known. So if you were to come forth and say the meteor was about 262,000 square miles long, that doesn't really give us a great visual. We don't really know what 262,000 square miles looks like. However, if you were to say something like the meteor, was about 262,000 square miles long, and that's about the size of Texas. Now, again, we probably don't know exactly what Texas looks like, but we can look at it on a map and say, it takes up a really good portion of the U.S. So it really does provide us an example and a visual for us to see when you compare these numbers to something that we're more familiar with. And another way to make these numbers come alive is just by tacking a visual aid onto it. Consider bringing up a table, a graph, or a chart to really show us these numbers and show us what these numbers mean as well. And my favorite type of supporting material is using examples. I heard a lot of really great examples in the values speech, and I really want to encourage that we continue to use these personal examples throughout the rest of our speeches this rest of the semester. So I know the value speech was a lot more personal and it allows you to use your personal examples, but again, consider your relationship to the topic. You chose your topic for the informative and persuasive speech for a reason. Now consider how you can incorporate yourself into this topic. Use your personal examples, and the more specific you are, the better. Because when you talk about an experience of, I went to school and I had a really bad day, that anything could have happened on that day. You could have tripped and stubbed your toe, or it could have been a lot worse. So really get into the nitty-gritty details of why that day was so bad. What exactly happened? Who was a part of that day? What were the events that took place? And then you can also consider hypothetical examples. And this is made useful when it comes to, real sensitive topics that maybe you don't want to use yourself in or disclose personal information about you, but you can sort of make up examples that are still very relatable. Another really great thing that you can do is to make comparisons, and this is great to show the similarities and differences, such as if you're talking about, I heard in the value speech, someone talking about their experience with one culture and another culture, and they made comparisons between those two cultures and what that sort of meant. And that allowed us to see the differences, but also the overlap of those two cultures as well. And the last part is you do want to think critically about these examples. As I've said before, I do love examples. However, going overboard with them does not do you justice. Meaning, if you're going to include so many examples and we get lost in what it is the point you're trying to make is, then it doesn't really provide enough support for your argument. And also consider, is this example even representative of the argument you're trying to make? If you're giving an example that, relates well to yourself, but doesn't relate to the main point you were even trying to make, or it's an example that relates to your main point, but relates to the next main point and the third main point as well, it just gets a little bit scrambled and hard to understand the point you are trying to make. So make sure that the example that you do use is very well representative of the argument and main point you are trying to make. And then comes the elements of explanations and descriptions. And this is really where you're going to hit the senses. And you're going to ask yourself certain questions. The who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how. Really describe and explain. First of all, what is it? Tell us what it is. And as simple vocabulary as possible, what is it? And then if you're talking about an event, how did it happen? What were the elements that came into play? Who was involved? Who was influenced? Especially, why does it matter? Why are you explaining this and why is this important? What does it look like, taste like, smell like, feel like? Really get into the nitty-gritty details of explaining and describing certain things. So if you were maybe to talk about the air quality in San Jose and to say something like, the air quality is really poor. Well, that doesn't really describe the air quality bad. That could mean anything, really. So really get into the details of what is so poor about the air quality. what does the air look like? What does it taste like when you're trying to take in a deep breath of it? How does it feel in your throat? What does it smell like? How does it affect your whole senses, your brain? Does it give you headaches? Really get into the details of what it is this air quality does say about our environment. So a great way to think about explanations and descriptions is to first, you want to define what it is that you're talking about, especially if it's something that's unfamiliar to the audience. So describing what is it, and then getting into the details of it, then addressing the who, what, when, where, why, how, and so on and so forth. All right, so that is all the lecture material that I have for you today. Please do make sure, though, that you go into the discussion board portion of this module and engage in the discussion. So I'll have posted a question or an activity or so for you to do, and please do respond so that I can give you participation points for this class period. And for next class, which is also still going to be on Canvas, please make sure that you do read chapter 13 because there is going to be a quiz number 6, and that will cover chapter 13 will be on that quiz, and the quiz will be on Canvas as well. So again, next class is on Canvas as well. Please do make sure that you check in and have a wonderful day. Thanks, guys.